Hello everyone, welcome back to another Skyrim AE build. I know this is a bit sudden, but I decided to finally put this together since I had the time and decided that I'd finally put it together. So, I hope you all enjoy, hope you like it, and today I actually have sort of a script to go with, so I hope it seems a bit better. So, if you like it, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff so maybe you can see another one. I'm not going to waste any time today. I'm going to get straight into the build. The build is, I went with the name, the Battle Master. This build is taking the theme or idea of someone who is skilled in many varieties of things in any sort of combat situation, whether it be stealth archer, or up close combat with sword and shield, or even like unarmed hand-to-hand combat style stuff. Now, the build itself is very versatile, so you can really do anything you want with it, but this is just how I interpret it. That's how I would play it. But anyways, that's not the only thing that's interesting about this character. You see, even though he's an orc who is exceptionally skilled at sword and shield combat from his extensive years of training as the Blades, or under the Blades, he's also very skilled with a bow from his years of hunting for his orcish stronghold. But not only that, he even knows how to brawl with just his fists, if it came down to it. And the way he learned all these skills were throughout all the years and stages of his life. This Battlemaster character is a very seasonal, a seasoned character. He's lived many, many years, but he still fights like he's young. And that's what we're going to get into, is his backstory. Way back when he was a kid, when he was growing up in the orcish stronghold of Largishburg. Now, many of you may come to know Largishburg as, very, remote, quiet place, and that's where his story starts off. He grew up there for most of his childhood. It, wasn't necessarily too impactful of his life there, since he was doing what normal orcs did. He learned a lot about the culture, he learned how to hunt, how to smith, and mostly all of that stuff he was training to become, just a traditional orc. His father was the chief, of course, so he had a lot of experience with training and many different things, and even at a young age he seemed to have a certain adaptability in combat that everyone in the stronghold acknowledged, but never really came out and said anything about it. It was just shown that he was going to be a very potent warrior, or potent fighter. Now, he would mainly stay very, reclusive with his own thoughts, I suppose you could say. He would be very self-centered, and he wouldn't be too egotistical, but something would always stick out in the back of his mind, that he would really like to see what it was like outside the walls of an orcish stronghold, since all he was told was, about the god of orcs, Malakath, how it came to be, and just learning a lot about the culture of orcs and traditions. But every time he'd bring it up to the chief, he would just be told that there's no need to worry about such nonsense about, what it'd be like in a city or exploring or anything like that. So the orc Battlemaster wouldn't be very content with this answer, but he wouldn't fight back against it or rebel, since he didn't really have any real reason as to why he wanted to explore out. He just felt like it was something he wanted to do. Well, one day he'd finally get his wish. You see, while he was hunting, at about the age of 15, we'll say, he would come across this group of bandits while he was out by himself, for the first time, of course. And at first he was going to let these bandits be, since, he's come across plenty of travelers going through the forest at, this time of year, which is around winter, we'll say. But this few specific groups of bandits had actually captured some Imperial soldiers, or, well, they looked like Imperial soldiers, at least from the first glance, since they had Emperor's signias on their armors and were adorned in this army-like set of armor and things like that. So the Orc Battlemaster, being, well, a kind person, he figured he would help them, since, he didn't want to just leave them stranded. It would feel like the worst thing to do. So, with ease, he decided to free the last few Imperial soldiers that were alive, at least, from these bandits, and he made quick work of them. Within a few minutes, they were all dead. And one of the Imperial soldiers saw this, well, right before he passed out, of course. The Battlemaster was going to bring the other Imperial soldiers back to the stronghold with him, but all but one of them was dead. So he only was able to save just the one, but even then, he wasn't in the best of shape. So the Battlemaster dragged the Imperial soldier back with his immense strength, and along with all the other animals he had hunted, and he pleaded with the chief to at least let the alchemists or someone do something to help him. And with a bit of reluctance, the Battlemaster got his wish from the chief. He didn't really feel like it was honorable to let, a soldier be healed by others, but he saw the Battlemaster had gone through a decent bit of trouble to get him there, so he figured that's the least he could do. Well, the Imperial soldier had finally woken up after a few days, and after getting his bearings, the first thing he could think of was how the Battlemaster had saved him from these bandits, and he boasted, well, not necessarily boasted, but, just was reminiscing about the skill that he had seen the Battlemaster show, and he said that there was a keen sort of skill to him that could be used in the Imperial army, which only further boosted the Battlemaster's view on himself, since he did know he was a good warrior, he just didn't want to admit it. So the Imperial soldier did end up offering if he could come and join the Imperial soldier, since he would be a great ally and tool to have on his side on the battlefield, again, of course. So the Battlemaster would then look towards the chief, and the chief at first would try and say no, but then would see that the Battlemaster's eyes were pleading with him to say yes, even though the Battlemaster would never beg on his knees for such an offer. So the chief would let it be, even if he didn't like it. He knew that maybe Malakath was gifting him this chance to go be an honorable warrior, even if it was outside of the Orc strongholds, not being, sticking to the traditions, of course. So the Battlemaster would then go with the Imperial soldier the next morning, gathering his belongings, saying his goodbyes, moving on to bigger horizons. And of course, the Battlemaster along the way with the Imperial soldier would still prove his mettle and skill yet again by helping fend off other wild animals and other bandits that were planning on, robbing them and killing them. So that only further gave the Imperial soldier more proof and leverage to his leading commander back at the Imperial city for, having him join the cause. And even with all of this in mind, the other soldiers and the commander at the time still didn't necessarily believe that some random orc could have a leg up on all these soldiers that are expertly trained through years of extensive training as an Imperial soldier. But sure enough, they threw him in the Colosseum, fighting a few trolls and some bandits, of course, every now and then. Separately fights, of course. And he proved that he was as skilled as the other Imperial soldier claimed. So, without hesitation, the commander had offered him a spot in the Imperial army, and this proved to be a big step for the Battlemaster to, experience new things and see new places, which he did do over the next few years of his time serving as a soldier. He would see places from Morrowind to Hammerfell. He would see places like Daggerfall, and everywhere in between. He would reminisce on these days as good exploration and just experiences that he would look fondly on. no matter what happened in these times, he would look back on it. But that's not where his story ends. You see, after the emperor had caught wind of this very specific orc in his army that was apparently so highly recommended amongst all the other soldiers and talked about, the emperor thought he could be a good use to maybe the blades, to have as a closer set of armor, in his closer army, for his good skills, I should say. So the emperor would approach him with an offer that would lead him into joining the blades and being initiated. Now, the battlemaster did, of course, take this and trained the next few years with the blades, basically being a glorified imperial soldier, which is what he was already doing, but just a bit more honorable, I suppose you could say. He would also do a great few things for the emperor and the blades, moving his way up through the ranks and getting even more recommendation back to the emperor himself. They would all say that he was a great addition and that his skills were so useful that he almost kind of outshined everyone else's, and the battlemaster would even stop at times and wonder why he was this skilled. It almost came like second nature. He could move through a group of bandits of at least 20 men, no problem, and slay them all down till there were nothing but just corpses, and he wouldn't even be winded or tired or even fatigued. He'd still have focus and concentration. And everyone would always say, oh, it's just because you're orc blood. Orcs are just naturally gifted warriors almost. He wasn't so sure about that, because anyone could be a warrior in his eyes. It's just a matter of skill, but to him, it, yet again, just felt off. But anyways, moving forwards, the emperor would come to him, even realizing the same thing that the battlemaster was thinking, that he had a bit more of a special place. So the emperor, after digging into what he could use the battlemaster for, he couldn't just make him a commander or a general. Then if he lost him, that would be a good asset gone. He couldn't make him the leader of the blades, since that would probably be too much more responsibility than just being a soldier, and he didn't want to make this normal soldier any sort of different, or given too much responsibility. So he would offer him to be somewhat like a secret warrior, a special warrior, if you will, like a super soldier, or, like the emperor's right hand. This title would loosely be named the Black-Eyed Oculatus, or something around those lines, although it's never stated for sure what he was called, since this is only really a name that was given to one other person ever in history, and it was only for one of the very first few emperors of Tamriel along the Titus, family line, or, the septum line. But it was only speculated to be a myth, at least, or a legend, even among kings and queens. So, yet again, the battlemaster would spend great few years more serving under the guise of the emperor, basically doing everything that he was doing already, just a bit more importance, like hunting down remnants of the Mythic Dawn, getting Daedric artifacts, acquiring things that the emperor needed done without causing a scene or anything. So, of course, eventually, this, partnership would flourish, and they would become almost like brothers or friends. Until one day, the Great War happened, which the Emperor needed his skills in the Great War, so he would call him back. Now, the Great War, no one really, the High Elves never really knew who this battlemaster was, for he was a secret agent who would just be in the battlefield randomly. He would be on the field fighting other high elves and hunting down assassins and messengers, and he was very hard to pin down, and this is what made the high elves kind of stay at a plateau with the Imperials. So eventually they came up with the White Gold Concordat, and this would kind of anger the battlemaster, since after the emperor had signed this agreement, he had also come to, respect the god Talos for being a warrior god for the Imperials, and he could see his values and all the reasonings as to why he was, very looked up to as, a god. And this would kind of infuriate him to the point where he would sever his connections with the emperor, but not in hate or anger or for revenge, but he would do it so that way he could go think. He didn't want to make any rash decisions or, have any animosity towards the emperor. So after the Great Wars was all said and done, and the High Elves were, reluctantly, of course, without saying so, were basically defeated or couldn't do anything else without, losing more people. They, all made this agreement. And so the Battlemaster would then spend a great many more years traveling around. And eventually he would be led into Skyrim, where, that's where his skills would take him there after traveling. Being basically 60 years old, he would still be living and doing the, same things, but still feeling just as young. When he'd get to Skyrim, he'd explore, maybe go meet his old clan at Largishburg, or, tribe, but would realize that they were under new management, if you'd say. But the main biggest thing is that when he finds out that he's Dragonborn, this would kind of leave some questions, answered in his mind that would make a lot more sense as to why, he would be so skilled at what he did, and he'd feel so invigorated after years of traveling, not really knowing what he wanted to do with his life. So this would lead into more exploration for him, more honor to attain, and so on and so forth. But that is where his story really leaves off. That's where you guys can go and, explore more with it and try doing more things. Now, you can also change a lot of the stuff and mess around with it for role-playing stuff, for role-play ability. On the one hand, I would role-play this character if you use this specific setup and backstory and stuff. I would role-play that if you have mods, you can kill the Thieves Guild. That would make sense because he kind of likes order, he doesn't like thieves and very honorable, but you could also say that he wants to see what it's like to be a thief. So he joined the Thieves Guild, or he just leave them be. He definitely kill the Dark Brotherhood, since their questline would be killing the Emperor, or you can make him go a darker path, saying that he did want to take matter into his own hands and kill the Emperor of Tamriel to see if change would be brought. But, who's to say, really? I really like the one where you just kill the Dark Brotherhood. But definitely joining the Companions would make sense. Maybe joining the Mages College if you decide to go into any mage-like skills, saying that, in his years of traveling, he would learn, magic, just to have a leg up on the High Elves, since you could also say that when he was in the Great War, one of the biggest challenges was fighting the mages, which is also why this brings me into other things, but about his skills and his stuff like that and his armor choices, but we'll get into that in a minute. But other than that, many other role-playing things, just the Companions, helping, do the main quest line, doing the Dawn Guard, siding with the Dawn Guard, of course, doing the Dragonborn DLC, but not necessarily messing with the Black Books or anything, or you could mess with the Black Books, but just saying that he has a lot more self-control than to not go mad over it. And you could also say that he would hunt down a lot of Daedric artifacts, using them for his own power and gain, since he also has a lot more self-control and, willpower. But besides that, we're going to get into the skills in the armor set. The skills are very basic, just one-handed, blocking, smithing, heavy armor, and light armor, or just all heavy armor if you want, but I went with heavy armor and light armor, since I went for a more Spartan-like build where he's light on his feet, but very, protected against other attacks, like, magical and physical. Archery, since that would make sense with the character, you can also be kind of stealthy. Enchanting, if you really want to make this roleplay ability better. For that, you could say that he messed with that just to kind of enchant some of his abilities and stuff, or some of his armor to make it better, of course, but that's, besides the point. To move on from that, though, the next skill, of course, is definitely smithing, if I didn't mention that before, which I think I did. Other than that, pretty simple character. He has all those, and you can add or take things away, make it more simple or more complex. Now, his equipment, The AE equipment that I'd say if you have Skyrim AE would be the Lord's Mail, the Imperial Dragon helmet, and the Penitentius Oculatus bracers and boots that you get with the Lord's Mail, or you can go with the Light Daedric gauntlets and boots. Those are pretty simple. You can also go with the Imperial Dragon gloves and boots too, if you don't like to enchant, but if you want to enchant your own stuff, you can use the Imperial Dragon's gauntlets and boots. You can use a Daedric sword. I went with the Daedric sword. I mean, you can obviously see my setup. And bows, on the other hand, you can use Ariel's bow or the bow of Nocturnal. And then for normal players of Skyrim, you can go with Daedric plate or like Daedric armor. Or, there's very different variety to this character. The build, the way it looks. But, I mean, as you can see, mine, I went with the Imperial Dragon shield for the blocking and the bashing damage. The, Daedric sword for, of course, just damage. And as you can see, the play style is he rushes into combat, uses his sword and shield, knocks people down. He'd back off, use his bow or magic. And basically, he is truly a battle master. But I don't like spending too much time on the play style, since you guys can have your own play style. And you can quite clearly see on the screen what my play style is like. But I hope my video was a bit more thorough this time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you can come back next time for another build video. And I hope you can subscribe to maybe see more content in the future. Leave a comment down below if you want me to make another build, or if you have any other ideas for other types of videos you want to see. I know it's a bit sudden, but, I figured I'd get this video out. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope you can come back later. Make sure you ring that bell so you can be notified whenever I next upload. And make sure you guys can tune in for another video. Just plain and simple. I hope you all have a good rest of your day.